So I do have handouts of this when we're done, so you'll have a copy to take home with you if you're interested. I also do handouts because I'm always paranoid that the presentation isn't going to work. I'm Lisa Dellum. For those of you that I think most of you know me, I am the president of Greater Lafayette Indivisible, and I also ran for office in November of 2008, and I won, so I'm now on the Tippecanoe County Council. 2018, sorry. So if you're in West Lafayette, there's the city of West Lafayette, there's a good chance that I am your representative on the county council. And we'll talk a little bit about what the county council does. We'll talk about what everyone does, those jobs that are open. But before we start, I did have a couple questions that I want to see hands raised. So how many people in this room have run for office? 1, 2, 3, 4 people. That's pretty good. How many people in this room have helped to campaign? Okay. How many people in this room are thinking about running for office? Okay. How many people in this room are thinking about helping a campaign? Well, everyone's hands up, but that's okay. All right, so, yeah.
How many people in this room are interested in how Tippecanoe County government runs?
Oh, okay, how many people? Okay. Well, I can also do a session on that another time, but I'll give you a little bit of an idea of how it works. I'm happy to really go into it at another time. So what I'm going to talk about today, I want to start off with an inspirational, what I find is a very inspirational quote, maybe, if I can get this to work. Let's see. Oh, I probably have to do this. Cheat. I guess. I thought this should work. Hang on. Oh, Jesus. Okay, good thing I have the backup slides.
You can just run it like this.
There we go. One more time. One more time. Sorry about that. I had this nightmare on Monday night that I was giving the presentation in a restaurant and or a store, no one could hear it. I didn't have this particular drink. All right. Well, let me hand out the slides then. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Can you just run from the PowerPoint instead of running through Google Docs?
Yeah.
Can you run through the program?
I didn't think to download it. I should have thought of that, but I did not think to do it.
Before.
Oh, okay. Anybody else need a handout?
Yeah, we can need some more. Did you actually open on your screen? Yeah. So if you can just run down the left-hand side column, like one by one.
Oh, like, show me what you're talking about. Well, it won't, it's not,
Go back
oh.
to the other tab. Yeah.
Well, this is the other presentation.
Oh, that's not. No, that one? No,
That's not my presentation.
No,
That's
the one before. You go to the one before? See this slides on the left, you can just go down.
Yeah, but the problem was it wasn't, okay.
It would be manual.
Yeah, let's try this one more time. Okay, so when I ran in 2018, Alana Stonebreaker ran for county council at the same time, and she gave what I thought was a really great, inspiring speech, and she talked about when she went out canvassing, and she knocked on 2,500 doors, and she won her race. I think it was 54% to 46% in a pretty close race with a very incumbent competitor who had been principal in Lafayette and done a lot of things. But she went out and knocked on a lot of doors, and this is what she said. She said, when you stand at that door, you may not get someone to vote for you, and you may not even get someone to vote at all. But I feel every conversation restores someone's faith in democracy just a little bit, and that's what it's all about. So when I thought about running for office myself, that's why I did it. I wanted to help restore democracy, and I wanted to help get people out voting and voting for people up and down the ballot who shared my values. So with that, I am going to talk a lot about this book. I used some examples from this book if you haven't seen it yet. It's called Don't Just March, Run for Something. And it came out right after Trump's election. This woman was the director of Hillary Clinton's digital strategy. And after a lot of people after the election said, well, what am I going to do different? Well, she decided to start this organization called Run for Something. And she realized that one of the problems that we have is good people weren't running for office. People weren't running for office for the right reasons. We had a lot of empty seats. And so she put together this book about why you should run for office, why it's so important that we have people running for office, how to run for, and how to run for office. So if you're thinking about running for office, I highly recommend you can borrow my copy, you can buy one, you can check it out at the library. I found it very inspiring. One of the things she says over and over again, like people will say, like, well, I'm not qualified, or I've got this problem I did in my past, or she says, look, Donald Trump is president. Anyone can run for office. So, you know, the traffic ticket you got or whatever it is that you did, you probably can still run for office. You need to think about it a little bit and how you're going to counteract it and respond when you get questions, but don't think that you can't run for office. So, with that, and she also has an organization called Run for Something. If you are a millennial, they will endorse you and they will give you training and they will help you run for office. They'll give you a mentor who will help you run for office. I personally was a little too old for it, but Alana was endorsed by Run for Something and they did give her training. And then she turned around and she mentored somebody this recent election. And I volunteered. I haven't done it yet, but I have volunteered to do that as well. So that's my big push for Run for Something. Plus, I steal some of her ideas, as you'll see in the slide. Okay, so my agenda. Let me see if I can get this to work now. I'm going to talk about, as I mentioned, why you should run for office, what offices are there, and that's when I'll talk about how county government works a little bit. And then I'll talk about how do you run, what do you need to do. This is by no means comprehensive of everything that you need to do to run for office. This is a class is designed to get you started, to motivate you, get you started, and give you a taste of what it requires. So again, why run for office? Well, we are a democracy. We are supposed to be a government of, by, and for the people. You are the people. And if you look at our government does not do a really good job of representing all those segments of our society, so we need to change that, and how we change it is we run for office and we help people run for office. One of the things that Amanda Littman says, she's the founder of Run for Something, she says, here are things that are going to you want to make a long-term difference in people's lives. 3 things. Run for office, win, and help your constituents. Run for office and lose, and know that you've held your elected officials accountable. Or support candidates who govern according to your values by volunteering, by donating, and voting. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So getting a little bit closer to home, we'll start with nationally. Only 50% of local races are contested. So what does that look like? So why is that bad? You know, we have a lot of local uncontested races locally. Why is that bad? Well, when if you watch the paper, if the race isn't contested, there's no coverage in the media, there's no publicity. People are less informed about what's going on. You think about whatever you think about the mayor's race in West Lafayette, it got more coverage because there was a competition there. Did not see that on this side of the river in Lafayette where there was no competition. Again, no accountability. And then the other thing is there's lower voter turnout. So if you have somebody on the ballot, for example, when Bob Goldsmith ran for sheriff last year, he has this huge network in the county, right? So his friends, and his family all came out to vote for him. When maybe they wouldn't have voted, when they came out to vote for him, then they voted up and down the ballot while they were there. So having more people on the ballot helps increase voter turnout.
Do you know how the difference between West Lafayette and Lafayette in terms of the percentage of people who voted? Because there was a lot more happening in.
For this election,
Yeah.
you mean for 2019, yeah, we had higher turnout in West Lafayette than we did in Lafayette in the recent municipal elections because there was more contested races. And actually, if you go through, and I did this race by race, compared last time, 2015 to 2019, you can clearly see when there are more people running, you have higher turnout, just on a race by race basis. So, for example, trying to think, Larry Lovren's district, which is in West Lafayette, it's where I live, District 4, he did not have a contested race this time. And in 2015, he did. That district had lower turnout this time. So you can clearly see that, just looking at the raw data, the number of voters. Okay, so I went through and looked at the state races for the legislature in 14, 16, and 18. And everything where there was not a contested race, I highlighted it in yellow. So there's a little bit of good news here. If you look over time, we are having more contested races. I think 18 was really helpful because we had a lot of people running. One thing that has changed is the Libertarians seem to have dropped out. That's what the L stands for. The R is Republican, G is Democrat, and O is Libertarian. But we definitely could probably get more people running here, but you'll see a stark contrast when I go to the countywide races. Okay, so 14 and 18, again, look at all the yellow of uncontested races in the county level. We had more in 2018 than we did in 2014. The particular seat that I ran for was County Council D4. Nobody had run, no Democrat, I take it back, no Democrat had ran in that race in 24 years. And I won by 64%. So, it tells you something. Now, you will see, I didn't talk a lot about primaries. There are contested races in the primaries. It tends to be on the Republican side of the ballot locally, not on the Democratic side. And obviously, the higher up the races, the more contested races you have. So, in 2018, we did have a contested primary on the Democratic side for Congress. But I think that was the only race that was contested in 2018 on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, we had the prosecuting attorney, we had sheriff. Those were very hotly contested races. So
Some of those people could have won if they'd run as Democrats.
maybe. Another thing to look at is the township trustee, which is, we've got 13 townships in Tippecanoe County. Oh, I have a copy here, sorry. Does somebody else need a copy?
Thank you.
We have 13 townships in Tippecanoe County. Each township has a trustee. In 2014, we had no contested races. And then in 2018, we had an improvement. We had 3 contested races. Similarly, the township board, each township has 3 people on their boards. They run at large. We had at least 4 people running in each one of those in 2014, in 4 of those townships, if that makes sense, and the same thing in 2018. So there's a lot of opportunities in the township level as well.
Board members running, because we had 3.
Yeah, it wasn't 4 board members, it's just 4 townships with contested races, yeah. So 2016, these are all the seats that are up for election in 2016. There are some judge races available open as well. I'm not going to talk about that because that's a little, there's some legal requirements that I don't quite understand, to be honest with you. So I'm going to be clear about that. But in the general election, you can see in 2016, we had a contested race for treasurer only. And then at the county council at large, which there were 3 openings, we had 3 Republicans running, 2 Democrats running, and 2 Libertarians running. So we did have a contested race there, but we could have filled that out. You could have had an additional Democrat and an additional Libertarian in that race. That's why it's kind of that soft yellow. So question some of you may be asking yourselves, what if I run and I do all this and I don't win? And yeah, that kind of sucks, right? And some of you here, I know those here who have ran before in that one. But you know what? You did win. I would argue you did win. You ran the day that you decided to run. You won the day you decided to run. Your elected leaders are now being held accountable. Democracy won. You, by going door to door, by talking to people, by participating, you are going to increase voter engagement and you're going to increase voter contact. You're also going to become a better person because you're going to talk to a lot of people, you're going to listen, you're going to put the work in, you're going to meet a lot of great people, you're going to know the community in a way that you wouldn't have known without running for office. And guess what? You'll be better known when you run again. So I encourage you all to think about running again if you lose. So let's talk about some great losers in history. Abraham Lincoln lost 6 elections. Bill Clinton and Barack Obama both lost their first election. And then Bernie Sanders lost in 2016. Now, I would argue he lost, but think about how much he changed the Democratic Party. Whether you agree with him or not, he did change the party. And that's a win. If he hadn't ran, think of how different the party might be today. He had a huge impact. So you can run for office, not win the election, and still win, in my opinion. Okay. Any questions about that? I'm going to talk a little bit about what the different jobs do at a very high level. What I would encourage you all to do is, if you want to know more detail about a specific job, go to the website. In the county for each of these jobs, I'll have a little description. I also have a booklet, Contact Me, which has like paragraphs that I got when I got elected that describe what these jobs do. But at a high level, the Indiana State House and Senate, they set the state laws and the budget. County commissioners, I think of as the county commissioners as kind of the mayor for the county, but there's 3 of them, and they also do the laws. So it's not parallel between city council, mayor, and county commissioners and county council. It's a different structure. So the county commissioners, there's 3 of them. They're the executive and they're the legislative branch in a way. They set laws and they execute the laws. The county council, that's what I'm on. And that's the only one on here that's a part-time, well, the State House and Senate House are ostensibly part-time jobs, and then the county council is a part-time job. The other ones are full-time jobs. Although I think Chris would argue that maybe they're really a full-time job, but the county council is responsible for budget and of the county. How does the county spend their money and approving that? Prosecuting attorney, I think that's pretty straightforward. Most people know that they represent the state in court, prosecute cases. The county clerk manages the court files, so how the cases are distributed, and then helps the courts run efficiently. They also serve on the election board, which is very important. The county auditor is the chief financial officer of the county. He helps the county council. He's our secretary. He takes the notes. The county recorder actually does the real estate files. So if you do some sort of property transfer, you're going to be working with her. Well, in our case, it's a her, but yeah, or it could be a him. The sheriff does law enforcement in jail. Most people probably know that the sheriff does law enforcement. They may not know that he's also in charge of the jail. The assessor values property for tax purposes. The coroner assesses cause of death. It's pretty straightforward. The treasurer is the custodian of the money, helps pays the bills and puts our money in a bank account, makes sure we're getting interest on it, that types of things. The surveyor, he does the cornerstone so we can tell where property is located, ditches, stormwater, and drainage. And then on the township level, you have the trustee, and the township is responsible for emergency assistance. So if you find yourself needing some money and you've lost your job and you're about ready to get kicked out of your home, you can go to the township trustee and ask for emergency assistance. They also are responsible for cemeteries and in many cases also fire protection. And then the township board is in charge of the township budget. We're seeing that. I'm not gonna, and then of course you got all the municipal elections that just happened. This isn't in your packet, but you got the mayor, the city clerk, and the city council. Any questions about those offices?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
When you talk about the responsibilities of those individuals that you just mentioned, not quite the mayor, but are these individuals responsible also for the city of Lafayette, or we just talking about the county?
The county is just responsible for the county functions. Now, there are some functions like the jail that the cities also use. But in general, the cities have their own, like the cities have their own police department. The cities have a lot of laws that are not, we try to do some stuff together, like zoning. We try to be consistent with our zoning, but the cities can actually do their own zoning, for example, if they choose to.
The assessor does all in the county.
The assessor does the whole county.
And the coroner does all the dead people, right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And their surveyor does, we don't have a city surveyor. Yeah, you're right. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
there's a distinction between what happens in the city of Lafayette.
Yeah.
Different individuals that perform certain
It's
duties.
confusing.
It is confusing. Yeah. So the prosecuting attorney does all the crimes, we don't have a city prosecuting attorney. We do have city clerks, but that's, a county clerk is doing a little different job. And I've been paying attention pretty closely for 2 years, and there's still a ton to learn. There's a pretty steep learning curve. So what does it take to run? So I think first thing you have to have is a purpose. Why are you running? You can't be running just because you need a job, in my opinion. You can't be running because you like the glory, because there's not that much glory. You should really be running because you have a purpose. What is it that you want to change? What do you see in the community that you think you can bring to it? And it doesn't have to be anything really fancy. So I ran because I felt like a couple of reasons. I didn't think anyone knew what the county council did. And I wanted to start talking about that more because I wanted people to know more about their local government. I thought that was important. That was one reason I ran. I also ran because I am a progressive and I didn't see any progressive voices on the county council, and I felt like my community is progressive. We need a progressive voice on the county council. So it could be something as simple as that. One of my favorite candidates, Donna Carome, ran in the Virginia. You may have heard of her. She was the first transgender woman to win a race, I think, in the Virginia House. She won in 2017. She ran just basically because she wanted to fix a highway in her town, and that's all she talked about. I want to fix this highway. So it can be something simple. It doesn't have to be. I think Chris, you ran on education, right? You want better education for our community. So it doesn't have to be something super, super complicated, but you should have a reason because people are going to ask you time and time again, why are you running? Why should I vote for you? And you want to have a really nice answer to that. You want a supportive team. So that can be your friends, ideally your significant other, because it will change your relationship, may change your relationship. They're going to get thrown into that. You want some money because depending on the size of the race, you're going to need a little bit of money. You may have to fundraise for it, but literature, yard signs, they cost money. You're going to need time, depending on how much you want to put into it and what the race is, but you're going to want to spend some time on this. And I also think it's really important that you have a willingness to listen to people, to learn, because there's so much to learn, not only about the job, but about what the people want, and then willingness to work hard. And then I would say the higher the office that you're looking for in the scheme of things, the more you need of all of those things, particularly the money.
So
Yeah.
our question is about how much money and how much time do you need, starting with, let's say, the city or the county, and then going up to the state?
So, Chris, you chime in as well. I'm going to tell you what I think, and then here, go ahead.
In the low thousands for anything, city, county, and then for state or higher. State, you're probably going to need tens of thousands, if not 100,000. Hopefully, at that point, you have some help from the state. In my case, the state asked me to run. They did polling. They established whether or not I was a viable candidate. That because funding is limited at the state level, they've got to decide which candidates they feel they just need a little push to make it over the line. And for me, I managed to get there enough that they felt that with that extra help, I would get there. And they kicked in over $100,000.
That's the
It's
election
campaign. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's
And that's
not partisan, it's like the state has.
the Democrats caucus.
Oh, Democrats.
The House Democrat caucus.
So I think if we look at your campaign, I think it was, I'll give you some numbers because I looked up what people spent.
Yeah.
I think you were around $100,000. I think Sally was about double, 200.
Whoa.
About 130,
Okay.
maybe.
I spent about $2,500 on the county council. Rough estimate, I would say
And when I was running I started out on the township board seat, I was aiming for about $1,000 just to cover literature and signs, and that's about it.
so when it gets expensive, if you do TV ads and TV ads, or just TV ads is what are really expensive. On a lower level campaign like mine, my major expense was yard signs because they're about $5 each, depending on what you order. And I ordered 100. So, other things like so Bob Goldsmith. This is not a typical, but I'll just because this is an interesting story. Bob Goldsmith spent about $12,000 running for sheriff. His competitors spent, I think it was closer to $125,000.
Whoa.
But he also had a competitive primary, so that primary
I also
rule,
had a party that could take it.
and he had a primary. We won't talk about that. So my rule of thumb, and this is just a rule of thumb, and this isn't based on what I would say. If you want to run in a county-wide race, $30,000. Just because you're going to need a lot of yard signs, and you're probably going to do a little bit of advertising, and that's pretty bare bones, is my guess. But the other thing, you can go to the county election board and ask them for anyone's financial filing, and you can see what they've spent in the past. Now, the problem is a lot of people haven't had competitive races in the past, so they haven't had to spend a lot of money. But that gives you some insight. That's what I did. I went and got my competitor's financial form and said, how much money does she have? What is she going to do? Because I'm for marketing, and so I'm always thinking about what's the competitive response? What's the competitive response? There wasn't much of a competitive response in reality, but I would want to look at that. Yeah.
In terms of, similar question, but in terms of time, like what would you say, like in terms of hours per week, how many hours per week did you spend throughout from the primary to the general?
So,
slowly ramps up.
right, I would say by the, again, a lot of it depends on how big the territory is. A lot of it depends on what you want to put into it. Now, some people don't want to knock doors and they just want to do advertising. That costs a lot more money and that means less time. I also think you don't get to know people and you don't get to know your community the way that you should.
It's also more difficult to target your audience, because not everybody watches the TV anymore.
Yeah.
Not everybody's gonna hear that commercial on the way to work or,
There's also, I tried to knock every day. I tried to knock 1 or 2 doors a day, but 1 or 2 hours a day. But having said that, I didn't probably need to knock as many doors as I did, but I was really wanting people to come out and not just vote for me, but I wanted people to come out and vote up and down the ballot. So I felt that's what I needed to do. I don't know that you need to do that much, but
I did a lot more than that.
well, you have, you have a much bigger race.
Yeah.
And my territory was just the city of basically the city of West Lafayette. If you're doing a county, it's a different scale. It's a very different scale. Okay.
But you're on the county administration. You're a county
Yes,
level.
but I represent a district.
Yeah, and it's basically, that's what's not yet.
All right, so one of the things I always like, I have another saying, but this is one. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So there is a lot of stuff to do, but just calm down because you just have to do it one bite at a time. So the first step is develop a campaign plan. And develop a campaign plan, you don't have to follow it to a T. You can modify it, you can change it, but at least have thought all these things through. The first thing I do is research. What does the position do? Learn more than that. But if you're thinking about running for auditor, I would go out and go to the auditor's website. Come to some of the meetings that he's in. He's like in the Coast Everett County Council meeting. So try to understand what the position does. There's always minutes on the website as well, the county website. And then talk to people that are involved. So I'm always willing to talk to you about county government. And there are other people as well. Understand your district. So my district is West Lafayette, it's very liberal, so I probably be a little more liberal with my views than maybe if I was representing a different district. What do they care about? How do they vote? What are their voting patterns? Understand who currently holds the office, the position, and what is their voting record, because you want to be able to figure out what they're going to run on. And then I would also evaluate yourself, understand your strengths and your weaknesses. What are you good at? What are you maybe not so good at? And how, if you get a question about it, how you're going to address that. And then why are you running? Really understand that. What is motivating you to run? As I mentioned, gathering support, so significant other, family, friends. Go to some party functions, so understand how the party works. I highly recommend that you start, if you're interested in interested in running, go to some Democratic or Republican, if that's what you're interested in, functions. And then understand your work or other obligations that you have, because it could very well impact your work and your family. Talk to the party chair. Please talk to the party chair before you sign up, because you want to find out who all is running, what's all going on, what's the skinny. Campaign finance. There's a whole class you can learn about how campaign finance is, and you want to make sure you understand that because there are legal implications to that. Again, the party chair can help you with that. And then understand the requirements and the timelines. When do you need to file? When's the election? And those types of things. It's acting up again.
When is the final, is it February?
I got that in here? Yeah, it's, darn it. Yeah. So either have this, depending on how formal you are, I would either have this on a scrap of paper or have it in your head. I did it all on a PowerPoint because that's how I think. I have a campaign plan. I also had a campaign book where I kept all the, here's where my precincts are, here's what it looks like, and just all the stuff I needed for my campaign, so I had it handy.
Leslie, you're
What is the position? What are the hot topics what does your district care about? Why are you running? Write all it down, or at least make sure you have answers to these things. Who's on your campaign team? Now, if you're running for a lower level office, your campaign team can just be you and your treasurer. You don't really need a big campaign team, but if you're running for a higher office, you probably want more people helping you than that. Numbers, how many votes do you need to win? They'll talk about that a lot, understanding how do you get those votes to win. How did your district vote last time? Where you can get the votes. Understand your competition, I talked about that. Messaging plan, if you do this up front, it'll make your life a lot easier because you're gonna be asked these questions constantly, but in slightly different formats. The newspaper will have something that you'll have to answer questions. Why are you running for office? You'll be going to candidate forums where they'll be asking you questions. So I would recommend having 3 to 4 bullet points on your qualifications. So examples are manage a $200 million budget. You're the president of LUM, if you are, I wasn't. You're a long-term resident. I would have 2 bullet points handy that shows you what you're likable, why we like you. Like, I'm the mom of 4 children, or I coach soccer, and I'm a CASA volunteer, those types of things. And then 3 to 4 bullet points about what you want to do. And then you just take and invest in schools. I talked about that. Transparency in government, fix the highway. And then you'll be taking those bullet points and depending on the audience and depending on the format, using those bullet points over and over and over again. You don't want to have to come up with different ones every time, and you want them to be consistent because you want to bring home your message. You'll have to do it slightly different every time. You want to have handy answers. You want an elevator. If you're going to heard of an elevator pitch on why you're running, you want a quick answer. What are you running for, and why are you running? Because you'll get asked that a lot. And you don't have to have it perfect. And as you go knocking doors, your elevator pitch will get better. And as you do it, you can get better at a lot of this stuff. So don't panic if you're not. This isn't perfect. Can you get it in? Let's stay back. I would recommend a digital strategy, and probably the most important digital platform. Yeah, here we go. Is Facebook. Super simple to set up a Facebook page. While you're setting up your Facebook page, I would also Google yourself and make sure that there's nothing bad on your Facebook or anything public. There is a candidate who's got some racy photos on his public Facebook page. I don't think that's really smart. So don't do that. And if you have some, hide them, make them unpublic, delete them. Don't have any racy photos or anything, anything kind of controversial. No swear words, unless you really want to be that type of candidate. I don't know. A website would be nice. I don't think you need a website when you immediately launch unless you've got a higher level campaign like a state race. Typically the party can help you with that. You're welcome to do a website. You probably want to get one eventually, but maybe not by February. You may want to do Twitter, depends if you're into Twitter. Media follows Twitter. Local media will also probably follow your Facebook page. Talk to people. We can tell you who's the media contacts. It's Dave Bangert. It's people at WLFI. You want them. They may contact you. You want to maybe contact them on some stuff. Fundraising. Okay, so here's the sad truth about fundraising. There's not a magic pot of money somewhere waiting for candidates to come claim them. You are going to have to go out and raise the money yourself. in most cases. Talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your significant other, figure out where you can get the money. You will get a little bit of money probably from party supporters, but you're not, I mean, I got a couple $100. You're not going to get very much money. I'll be honest with you. You're going to have to raise it yourself. Think about your budget. How much are you going to spend on literature, yard signs, advertising? Again, you can talk to me or any of the other candidates to get an idea of what we've spent in the past, where we've gotten that type of thing. And again, as I mentioned before, you file, clean up your social media, Google yourself, create a Facebook page, and then you can schedule a launch party. So one of the things you might want to think about doing is, as you get to know the party, you get to know other people running. What we did in 2018, there was a bunch of us running, we had a launch party together. And basically all that is we went to the Democratic headquarters, we had some hors d'oeuvres, we told the media about it, and you want to think about when you're doing it because you're ideally going to get some media coverage. And just have your supporters come, and it's a good opportunity for you to practice your speeches in front of a friendly audience. You may also get some people that want to support you. So that would be the other thing I'd recommend. And then one of you this is all great, Lisa, but I just can't run. I've got other things to do, or this isn't my time. Find someone else to run, because we have so many empty spots. Think about how you can help a campaign. We need three things. We need your talents. So are you good at managing money? Because we all could use a good finance person to do our campaign finance reports. Are you good at drawing or marketing? Because we could use help with messaging. We could use help with logos. Are you good at knocking doors? And that's with the time. Can you help or stuff envelopes or anything like that? And then, of course, treasure is donating money. Because as I mentioned, there's no pot of money, so we need people to donate money.
Excuse me, just,
Yeah.
did you skip slide 12 for campaign fundraisers?
Oh, maybe I did. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did. Yeah, so, sorry. So the timeline is, Susan was mentioning, January 8th to February 7th of next year is the filing deadline. So people will start filing for the 2016 race. May 5th is the primary election, and November 3rd is the general election. Other timelines that you're going to need that I don't have in here, you're going to need the campaign finance filing dates. You're going to want to make sure you're very cognizant of that, because again, if you miss those, you will get fined. Any sort of campaign activities, that's where you really want to hook into with the party, and they can help you with a lot of those things. And then get out the vote. Canvassing, door knocking, phone calls, texting, and registering voters are some of the other activities that you can do to get people out to vote for you. Any other things I skipped? And then finally, I just, sometimes when I get down, I think about great quotes, and I really like this quote. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. So we are a small group in here of thoughtful, committed citizens. We can change the world. That's how you change the world. Is people get together and they do it. So running for office is a great way to start, or helping other people run for office. So I'm so glad you all came out tonight. I thank you. I have Steve Durbin here, who knows a lot about the data on the party, and I think he wants to share some data with you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and I'll try and run the slides for you.
I have a few slides, and it's basically just to give you a flavor for what kind of information is available that could help you in selecting a race and how you can run the race and how you go about campaigning or canvassing and everything else. Okay. So this is, which precincts have your voters, which races or districts have your voters, and what do the turnout trends tell you? This is the most important slide I'm going to show you, and the hint is it's going to tell you to run. And then a few other things about it. More kinds of data that we can get. This is an example. This is a big picture plot of Tippecanoe County. It's broken down into precincts. We have precinct data on every election and every precinct that we can evaluate. And on this particular one, every precinct is given a score based on averaging a bunch of races, how Republican it is and how Democrat it is. And you see, you know the county. Everywhere on the outside is farmland, and they're pretty red. And in the center, it's pretty blue. And just who wins countywide depends on the year in the race. Most of the time it's Republicans, but I'm going to show you that it's not always that way. And I think we've got a really good year coming up. And there's a lot of additional analysis. The most interesting thing often is, say there's a particular race like county council district race, we can look at previous candidates and Republican versus Democrat and how it compared to which candidates are attracting more votes and so forth. So we can get very granular on a precinct by precinct basis. This is an example of where choosing the race, like you're interested in running for office and there's a couple of possibilities that you might have in mind. This is an analysis that was done after 2016, and all we did is pick all these different races that have different districts. They don't have the same voters. So County Council District 4 is one set of precincts, and then Wabash Trustee is a different set of precincts. And we just said how many Trump voters were there and how many Clinton voters were there. And that will give you a feeling for, and that was not a good year for the Democrats, okay? But you can see at the top there's like 6 bars there, but that corresponded to like 12 people, 12 races, because we have 3 people for each township has 3 board members and a trustee. So that's like 12 people. And by the way, before the election, before the 2018 election, of those 12, 2 were Democrats. Today, it's 12 out of 12, because we knew what races had your voters in. Okay. Now, if you want to run for a trustee of some outer township, I'd say you should switch parties, Although some people have pointed out that those have a very small number of voters. And a really motivated candidate who could get to know 50 people in your township could probably win that race. Okay? So that's not off the table either. So this is how we look at race by race. You get a feeling for, what's a good opportunity. This is the most important slide. My message for today. Okay. It's a little bit data heavy here, but basically, starting in 2006, either the midterm year election or the presidential year election and the alternate 2-year periods, we went through and basically could estimate or determine what fraction of the voters were Democratic-leaning voters and what fraction are Republican-leaning voters. Okay. And in a really bad year, 2014, that's an off-year election, it was like the voters were over 60% Republican and only 40% Democrat. So that was a tough year. Now, we had several judge candidates who won that year, so you can still win, but you can only win by getting Republicans to vote for you. Okay. So this band here, these are midterm races. This band over here, these are presidential races. So turnout is higher. This is versus turnout. So here's the gold standard there in 2008. That was Obama's first race. And we actually had slightly more Democratic-leaning voters than Republicans, by like 1%. It's like in the noise. Basically say, we had the Democrats and Republicans turn out in equal numbers for that race in this county. Okay? And that's the only race on there like that. But Susan here ran in that race and lost by a tiny number of votes, okay? But still, you can see those 2 data points are basically sitting on top of each other. If you look at the trend and say, well, what would the turnout be, as what would the ratio of Republicans to Democrats be as the turnout goes up? It heavily favors Democrats as the turnout goes up. And if you do some model, you'd say, it looks like our county really is like 57% Democrat. They're just not voting. If Democrats voted, if they turned out at the same rate as Republicans, this county would be 57-43.
why aren't they voting?
Because
We can
don't
change
let
that.
anybody in
Okay.
those races, I think for one thing.
I-
How many times have we gone to the ballot and it's like Republican, it was like one Democrat, right?
So I can't answer that question, but along those, to help answer it for the future, we are not stuck in this pattern. So this is a pattern based on, the last 6 major election years and so forth, okay? Not counting the last one, okay? So in 2018, so anyway, if you look at these big heavy red lines in 2008, they cross, okay? So if we have turnouts, like if we stick to the old model and we have turnout that equals 2008, we will have equal numbers of Democrat and Republican leaning voters, okay? But here's 2018. That's an off-year, midterm year race. It's well above the previous 3 sets of midterm races. And the breakdown between Democrat and Republican didn't follow the previous pattern. There's a new pattern at work here. So even for the same level of turnout, I think the numbers were something like we had a surge of 7,000 extra Republican voters, 11,000 extra Democratic voters compared to the average midterm turnout in the previous 3 midterm cycles. That year, we broke the pattern. We're not in that same framework that we were before. There are now more Democrats who in the past would not have voted, who are now voting. Also true for Republicans, but it turns out there are actually more Democrats. So now let's go to 2020. I believe, and I think this is supported by all sorts of other commentators on this issue, we're going to have the highest turnout ever in this country. Okay.
Our voting machine, I don't have up here.
And that means we're going to go past the Obama mark of 2008 in this county. This 2018 midterm is a big jump over the previous years. I'm convinced. I'm predicting the future. I'm convinced that the turnout is going to be the highest ever. And the higher the turnout gets, the more Democratic it gets. If we go, based on this sort of pattern that seems to be taking hold now, if we just match the Obama turnout, we'll have 3 or 4% more Democrats voting than Republicans. If we go above it a little bit, you might have a 5% cushion. There might be 5% more Democrats, Democratic leaning voters. They don't all vote straight Democrat, and Republicans don't all vote straight Republican. But you're going to have somewhere between, it may be 50-50, that's the worst case. The best case, you may have 53-47 or something like that. So what I'm telling people, and I've been telling people this for a year now, this is the year to run as a Democrat. 2020, you can get elected without having Republicans vote for you. You want the Republicans to vote for you, then you can really make a statement, okay? But this is the one election on this plot, since 2006, where you can expect there will be more Democratic-leaning voters showing up than Republican. So, if you're thinking about running, yes.
Would you say that a major factor of why this is happening is the performance of the majority party? I mean, the more they screw up, the more the chances of the other side winning is
Well,
going to be.
Everybody I know that's become more active in recent years has been strictly because of Trump.
Yeah.
Since then, you can say it's not just Trump, it's everybody, okay? So I see where you're going with that, but Trump was enough. Then you see Mitch McConnell and what's happening in the Senate and so forth. None of that, so in 2018, that drove a lot of people to vote. I haven't seen any slowdown in that. I don't know anybody that's like, well, we did our job in 2018, we'll go back to ignoring our right to vote or need to vote or something like that. I feel like it's just going to get more intense. And what this map says is the higher the turnout, the more Democrats are going to be there. This is a Democratic county. They're just not voting.
But even before Trump, the trend was for Democrats in terms of their inclusivity in racially and with women and with and younger people were more going towards Democrats. So the Republicans were already in trouble. If you remember, they had that big, oh, what are we going to do? Because we only appeal to white males over 50.
Well, it turns out they had nothing to worry about. So that was after the Obama election.
Yeah, that they were really worried. Well, you know.
Then we got Trump. So anyway, you know, I'm feeling very confident that this is not going to go away. Yes, sir.
Do we have any sense if these numbers translate to other counties, or is it just typically?
We are not typical. Okay. I haven't done it myself. One of my colleagues, Ian Fidlar, as many of you know, he actually looked at, when I first showed him this kind of analysis, he was thinking of a congressional race that covered other counties, and he kind of looked at it. And you don't get the same confidence in other counties that you do in Tippecanoe County. We are here to turn Tippecanoe blue. That can spill over. We can be a model for other communities and other counties nearby. But we have a big head start over all of our neighboring counties in terms of the percentage of Democratic leaning voters that are just sitting out. You know, so really, we should be leading this effort. Yes.
Do we have any data on millennial voters? How many there are and why they're not voting?
Well,
I know they've done better in the 2018 elections, but traditionally.
we have data, but I can't say that we have analysis. I've looked at the, we can get from the voter data files, the voter turnout versus age. And I have some plots of that. And there's some interesting stuff there, but I don't have that down to a simple message. So, so there's data, but there isn't analysis, is how I put it. Yes, ma'am.
The deadline for filing is coming up. What offices are available?
Oh, it's all the ones for 2016?
Actually, I guess that's on.
Is that what you mean, what's up in 2020?
Yeah.
It happens to be these.
Oh, okay.
These races, because this was.
Okay.
Oh, no, this is 2018. That's the wrong ones. So what I can tell you off the top of my head is that there are 2 county commissioner races, there are 3 county council at-large races, and then there are there are several judge openings, and then there are I'm sorry, what?
Yes.
Yeah.
One doesn't, Tracy Brown ran it in 2018.
They stagger.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's Dave Byers and Tom Murtaugh's
Yep.
seats, right? And there are a number of what I think of as county offices. You know, these are people who have an office and work in the courthouse mostly or nearby. And I'm not sure which ones, are these the ones on the ballot now?
These should be up in 2020 from a county level.
So you
Does
see
the
it now?
coroner have to know anything about the cause of death? I've always wondered.
I think that,
They don't have to look at dead bodies.
Really bad idea.
so-
I mean, the people need to know these.
Well, they can outsource it. I mean, they don't have to be the,
The coroner in Jasper County, at one point was a dentist. The coroner, relative of mine in Porter County was a mortician. I mean, he was a funeral home director. They just have to be like, yep, dead.
I don't know the answer to that question. Let's support the idea that we should have qualified people running.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
All right.
but we need to know it.
Right,
But some of these positions are.
In running, how do you know the basic? I'm new to the area. I need to know what I qualify, which area I qualify.
Right. There are 2 treasurers up there. One of those must be an auditor.
Oh, shoot, why do I have that up there, Stripe? Oh, that's an error.
I think that
It is an error.
What is?
I think it's recorder.
His recorder or something, you just have to keep.
Lisa, what's the best
No.
way for someone who's relatively new in town to find out what each of these offices is required, is responsible for?
So I would
They're
go,
responsible for.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I live out in the county, so these are county positions, so the ones in yellow are the ones that are.
Well, basically, every one of those offices, actually, it's a very, it changes drastically between or midterm year and a presidential year. In the presidential year, essentially, every one of these races is countywide. The two county commissioners, you have to live in one district or the other, but the whole county still votes for you. So basically, everything we've talked about is the entire county votes for you. If you wait 2 more years in 2022, then we have all these individual township races. Now, the one exception about being countywide would be like the state congressional or the state house district and the state senate district. Everything else is totally countywide. So it's like you're running at large for the whole county. Now, in 2016, the average county votes were something like 4% more Republican than Democrat for the statewide or the countywide races, which means there, a good candidate can overcome that kind of 4% shift. But on the average, there was 4% more Republican voters than Democratic voters for the countywide races for the kind of things that we're talking about. I'm predicting that will be different this time around. It will actually be at least even numbers and maybe a little cushion on the Democratic side this time around. But I will also say we need good candidates. A weak candidate will lose a race or could. Sometimes you get lucky and a landslide will carry you through. But I'm not saying that anybody can win, or I'm not saying that Democrats will automatically vote for you. You still have to give people a reason to vote for you. But the environment is good this time.
yeah. So I'm just pulling up, this is all the voting. I don't know why the treasurer's on right, that was a mistake. These are all the races that are up in 2020. So this is actually the correct.
Okay. Now I just
List.
have one last slide.
I will go back to that. The recorder was last time.
And so treasurer, it's just running an office, basically.
Well, yeah, the money, paying the bills and
Right.
taking care of the money. It's
Right.
the treasurer, right? Yeah.
This is it. I wanted to show you an example of kind of support that's available from data that the party has access to anyway. That's a map. I actually generated this myself for a West Lafayette City Council race, where in that neighborhood in West Lafayette, for some reason that's rotating that picture, but you don't have to worry about it. We have a dot, which includes a list with name and address and so forth, for every voter who did not vote in the 2015 municipal election, but did vote in the 2018 primary election as a Democrat. See, the thinking was if the Democratic turnout in the primaries is very low, so if somebody votes there, they're a committed Democrat. And yet this committed Democrat didn't vote in the last city election. So I figured that's the kind of person whose door you want to knock on and vote for you in the city election. So this is just an example of the kind of targeting that can be done when you know your precincts, you know what you're running for, you want to know which precincts you're going to focus on. Even though you're running county-wide, you're not going to go to every precinct in the county, you're going to have to target. And there's some, we can give advice. You decide how you want to target. But once you have some feeling for your strategy, what kind of, like for instance, don't waste your time knocking on the door of somebody that you know is going to vote for you, or you know is going to vote against you. They always turn out. They always vote Republican. They always vote Democrat. Those aren't a good use of your time. Some people have different opinions. They think, oh no, knock on everybody's door. That's not very efficient. Right? So anyway, there is, you decide, the candidate decides. But a lot of information can be put in a form like this, which will help you to know when you have the time to knock on doors, what's the biggest payoff. That's the last thing I want to say.
Okay.
Details.
So I do have a couple people in the room who either ran for office or are elected official. So what I thought we would do is maybe have you guys say just a few words about what the experience was like. If you're comfortable with that, you don't have to do it. And then people could also ask questions, because I'm happy to share my experience, but everyone has a different experience, right? Some people run for different office, some people won, some people lost, some people ran twice. So I don't know, Kathy, if you're comfortable, just talk about your experience, because you have a really great story.
Oh, okay, well, I ran.
Introduce yourself too.
Can I sit right here or do I have to stand up?
You have to stand up.
I do. Alright, no, okay, so I'm Kathy Parker, and I ran for the first time in, okay, I ran for the first time in 2015 because Sonia Marjoram called me up and said she asked me to run for city council. And I, at the time, was a lunch lady at Cumberland School. So my initial reaction was, what? Why me? I have nothing to bring to the table here. I do lunch and recess supervision, and I teach yoga to kindergartners. But then I thought about the people in Indianapolis that are making policy. And I thought, oh, I guess maybe I am qualified. So I ran, and I ended up losing by 35 votes. But I didn't quit. I got more involved in local everything. And so I've been going to city council meetings since I first decided to run for office, in January 2015. I think I've maybe missed less than 5 over the last 4 years. I was the head, the local lead for Moms Demand Action. I was just involved with a lot of different things. And I, knew I was going to run again. So I did run again, and I had lots of support and lots of help and lots of data people. Ian, did a lot of the things you were talking about up here. And I knocked on all of the doors that were from the lists that were given to me, and gave out literature, and I did some digital advertising this time around. And I had, a lot of pretty influential people that were supporting me too, if not outright, like vocally able to do it. They made it known that they supported me, and they allowed me to use pictures, things like that. So I did some digital advertising. I never saw one, but I did it, and I was endorsed by Everytown for Gun Safety, so they gave me some money. And I ended up winning by 150. Thank you. So that's what I got.
So how was it different the first time than the second time?
Well, internally, it was a lot different because I really just didn't feel qualified the first time. And the second time, I really did feel qualified. So maybe that was part of it. It's not that I didn't try the first time. I did. I knocked on all the doors, but I had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't know a lot about city government. I didn't know a lot about a lot of things. So, I don't know. It's been kind of a personal journey for me. And I've just stayed involved, gotten more involved, gotten to know more people, and involved in more things. So, digital advertising and people running the numbers, and that was different for me this second time.
Kathy, was it going to the county meetings and the city council meetings and the official meetings?
I never did go to a county meeting.
How you did the
city council. Yeah, I went to the West Lafayette City Council meetings, went to just about all of them. And I, personally think that if you're going to be on the city council, you should make it a point to be there, to actually show up. So I felt like that was an important thing for me to do. If I'm going to do this, I should maybe, the only way to learn what goes on is to go to the meetings. And I'm still kind of nervous, but I know more than I would have if I hadn't gone. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. My name is Brian Hall. I ran for the Wea Township board back last midterm, did not win. But it was, when I signed up, they're like, oh, Democrat has never won ever. They've never been Democrat on the board. And I looked at the number, I was like, I'll try it. I was interested in, getting involved. So I was like, oh, I'll, just get my feet wet this way. And it was fun. It just was going, learning is all new stuff I learned. They ran the numbers and I looked and was like, okay, if I get 3,000 votes, I'll be on the board. And so door to door, everything. And I came in, there's 3 board, so the 3 Republicans got more votes than I did, but I ended up with like 3,800 votes. So any other year, I would have made the board of the village. That a lot of Republican votes came out. But Steve left, but he told me, he looked at my numbers, and a lot of Republicans also voted for me, plus a Republican. So going door to door works, and it's the first couple times you're just nervous and scared for it, but then you kind of get used to it. It's pretty, it's a good experience. And so if you're interested in it, research it, see if it'll fit into your time, right? But if it does, definitely worth it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you gonna, you think you might, since you kind of got your feet wet, you think you might do it again?
Yeah, I think I will. Once it comes up, but yeah, pretty sure I will.
Brian, if you were to run again, is there something you learned from the first campaign that you would do differently this time?
I would have started earlier. I remember thinking, like, oh, I can wait to start to go kind of door to door and wait closer to, because I didn't have a primary at that point. I was the only Democrat that was even running. So I was like, oh, I don't have to do anything until it gets closer to. But then that last month, it's like, oh, I need to do this, the other 15 billion things to do. I would have started out earlier. And I would have, people offered to kind of, oh, how can I help? It's like, oh, no, I don't need this, don't need this. There's a lot of things that I wish I would have accepted help and could have had. Like my mom could have wrote, because I was writing my own notes, like, oh, it's nice talking to you, and, mailing out after, making those contacts. That would have been one more thing off of my list of anybody offers to kind of help out, grab onto them and say, please come help, because there's so much you have no clue, how much stuff there actually is to do. And it really is a lot to do, but it's fun. You get to know everybody, and you get to go out with, with other people that are running. You kind of go door to door with them. I went with my campaign door to door person was Sherry Shipley, because we were in the same area and we overlapped. So we would, like every Sunday we would meet for like 3 hours and kind of go door to door. So you kind of develop friendships that way as well. Yeah.
And so now Brian was talking about, like, so the February date is to be on the primary, the May 5th primary, the May something primary, the May primary.
Sure.
Now, if no one files to be on, just to be clear, like if nobody files and is in the primary, there's an open seat, the party can what they call caucus somebody in to that seat by the end of June. So that's what happened to Chris Campbell. She got caucused into the State House seat. So you really were running for township. And then she decided, in June, she switched over to running for State House, and she won. So, earlier is better, but you don't have to be early to do that. Same thing with Bob Goldsmith. He did not get caucused in until June. It's a little different because if somebody had decided to file in February, then you can't get caucused in, right? Because it has to be an open seat. So you're taking your chances. Yeah, but just because you don't file in February, there's still a chance you could still run again if nobody else shows up for the primary.
Yeah, because on the board there's 3 seats, and then so I was 1 seat, and then somebody caucused in. I forget when she caucused in as well. Those past the deadline, and then she expressed interest in it. So there were 2 of us on the 3 we board. But yeah, it's just kind of, if you're interested at all, it's worth at least investing a little bit of research into it. So, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
This will end up being a general question for anybody who talks about their experience. How long have you lived in Tippecanoe County? And do you currently work a full-time job other than the office that you hold?
That's a good question, because how I even knew to run, I'm on the Democratic newsletter and said, okay, here are all the positions. And I was like, oh, we have boards. So I was like, I have no clue what that is. No idea. So I did a little research. It's like, oh, they meet once a month. I was like, I can do that. Because yeah, I lived here since 2004. And yeah, I'm a full-time teacher. So I was like, I can't have a job where, I have to have more flexible. And so I was like, I can do the board seat. So yeah, you have to find something that kind of fits in with your life and where you're at. Yeah.
Thank you for running.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Do you want to talk, Chris?
Sure. So I have lived in the community for a long time. I went to school at Purdue, and then my husband and I came back in '96. So one of the first things I did was, at the time Sonia was retiring and there was going to be a new mayor running, and one of the things that they did was starting to organize neighborhoods. So that's kind of my first step into politics. I started organizing my neighborhood, getting involved that way, increasing communication, and I helped people run for office. I helped many people run for that seat. And when I was asked to do it, I said, let's get Kathy. She'll do it. It was just really hard to just, work on that race so many times and see the other person do nothing, absolutely nothing, and win the seat. So it was a very Republican-leaning district. So it was, I enjoyed being behind the scenes. I helped, do the canvassing, yard sign planting, organizing. I worked on our first school referendum in our community. I eventually was appointed to things because I was actually being groomed for politics. I thought I meant council. That was my goal. But with all that experience, they were looking for somebody to run for the state seat. So even though I told Heather many times not to send my name in, she did anyway. And one of the things that I say is, especially as a woman, I think we really underestimate ourselves. Like Kathy was saying, I'm not ready, I'm not experienced, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me tell you, I am down at the state level and they do not know what they're doing. They have it's like my being on a library board, school referendum, just my involvement, redevelopment commission. They're doing things down there without, it's just like what they think they should do, and they have the power to do it. So it's very, very concerning. So if you have an inkling that maybe, to me as a woman, that underestimation, I started at the bottom. I was running for that town board, or the trustee board seat, because, I need to have as much experience as possible before I go up. And let me tell you, you probably know a lot more than you think you do.
Donald Trump is president. Just remember that.
What's that?
Donald Trump is president. You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember that.
You can do it.
So, but do you have any questions for me?
I don't have a question, but I have a shout out for you.
Yeah.
So with Chris's help, we, Moms Demand Action, got a meeting with Superintendent Jennifer McCormick about getting the SMART and gun safety program into schools, especially because Dr. Killian is a little bit stubborn. It's just safe storage and talking about the need for safe storage to keep children from accessing guns, taking them to school, shooting each other, shooting mom and dad. Okay, so, and also suicide prevention. Anyway, so Chris helped set that meeting up, and last night, Dr. McCormick sent out a note to all superintendents and principals around the state, pushing for more education about safe gun storage and red flag laws.
Wow.
So,
Would you like to describe for this?